Welcome to day number one. I say day number one. It is day number one. We've done racing. We are at the Olympics. Windsurfing has started. 3 races for the men, 3 races for the women. And I have got Antonio Cozzolino with me to discuss the racing. But, and there is a big but, because we do have a special guest today who we're going to intro in a bit. He's got one more gold medal than both of us put together. Which he won in the 2008 Beijing Games. It is, of course, Mr. Tom Ashley. There he is. So, boys, how are we doing? You two are obviously good mates. Have you been watching the racing? What have you been doing? What have you been up to today?
I tried to watch the racing a little bit with mixed success here in New Zealand. Yeah, not everything's on TV, so I ended up watching some laser racing, which was not how I would have chosen to spend my evening, and but definitely following the results.
Yeah, I was going to say, for anyone who has been trying to find the racing, which is me, which is Antonio, we did some research today. For what we found out, the easiest way, if you want to guarantee it, was Eurosport.com. Pay yourself a monthly subscription. You can cancel it after a week, so you only pay, I think, $6.99. And then you can pretty much get the races on demand. Now, it's not all the races. It's not every race from every different corner like we usually have on the live stream we do on the PWA and stuff. This is a few select races from one particular race course. Would that be fair to say, Antonio?
Yeah, that's right. So I think it's the Kamakura race course, which is the one closest to the beach. So that's the one they televise, and they mix the classes around each day on them, which is why Tom was had the pleasure of seeing the lasers. So we only saw the women's. Only the women's RSX was televised this morning.
Yeah. So, I mean, for anyone who did catch the racing today, it was pretty light. I think that's fair to say, especially the ones that was televised. We have spoke to a few guys over there. Well, I say we have. Antonio definitely has. Speak to Kieran. In fact, well, maybe we can get something from the horse's mouth, because I'm not sure we've got Kieran's okay for this, but he has left a WhatsApp message, and I just think it's cool to give you guys at home sort of that word from over there to sort of hear what it was like out there today.
Yeah, he's not very controversial in it, so it'll be fine. Yeah, I'll buy him a coffee later or something.
So we started the day with a bit of cross offshore, and it was quite light, and the sea breeze was sort of teasing the whole time. So we had quite a shifting breeze, like a bit of left, bit of right, bit of left, bit of right. Completely shit itself in the second race, where we finished with like a classy one. And then we waited for about an hour, and then the sea breeze kicked in. And we had quite a solid sea breeze, I'd say 10, 11 knots maybe. And then it sort of kept that direction, but maybe got a bit less for the chicks. I'm not too sure actually, but yeah, that was what we've got today.
Yeah, so there we go. I think if you're looking at the pictures that are on screen now, got to say, Sailing Energy. I had a word with Jesus, and he sent me the link over. So cheers to him for that. But you can see the guys definitely had more breeze. There's 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looks like they had quite a bit of a mixture, but good on the first day to like have a bit of everything.
Yeah,
I think.
So go on.
No, you go.
No, I was just going to say, results-wise, obviously mixed breeze, a few mixed results. I will give myself a bit of a big up here. I called the Swiss guy. To be fair, I didn't even know about him before this competition, before I had a bit of inside knowledge, but he's done me good there. 2 first places on the first day. You know what I mean? Is that out the blue? You guys, do you know much about him? What's his background?
I'll let Tom go first, because we've done a lot of talking already. So.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't able to watch the men's racing, and definitely seeing the results and of the first 2 races when I got to check them. I mean, you know exactly what the conditions are when you see that guy having 2 bullets. So he's a pretty small dude. Sails really well. I have to say, would absolutely hate racing a guy like that in those conditions, because he doesn't need to pump or anything like that. He'll just sit there in the harness and smoke it. And but there, I think on a day like yesterday, is it today for you guys? Yesterday, the winners are the all-round sailors like Kieran or Mattia, who can do the whole range of conditions, but still manage to knock out a couple of good results. So it would be a big surprise to see the Swiss guy there at the end of the week, but he's done a bloody good job.
I mean, that's a good way to start the regatta. I just pulled up that picture because I didn't know much about him. So I thought, right, I'm going to do some little bit of research. My research involves going to Instagram and typing him. I think that's him. I hope it's him, but he's got a fairly big 8-pack going on there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's 59 kilos.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's definitely the smallest in the fleet, but he does exceptionally well across conditions. I mean, even in the windy race, he was still, what was he, 11th? 9th. So, he still manages it extremely well. He's a very, very good sailor.
Well, I mean, you've got to be 2 first places on the first day. Didn't quite get it together in that last one. I mean, that's the only thing that we lack here, because a lot of the race results, the individual race results, you can see what the mark roundings, and you can see the course, and it shows you the wind strength for each mark. But even after this first day, I've got to be honest, looking at the pictures, I'm not quite sure those wind readings are right on. It was saying 8 knots at every mark, and looking at the pictures, they look like they're pretty much planing in all, in some of the races. 8 knots, that's not comfortable planing, is it, on an RSX?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And it looked like just over 10 knots or something like that, maybe 11, 12. The RSX is definitely playing a little bit earlier than they used to, as people have gotten better sailing them. But I mean, just to reinforce what Antonio said, the Swiss guy's a bloody good sailor, and he does manage to get through the conditions really well. I think that's one different thing with the Olympics as well, because it's a smaller fleet. There's a bit more space and less good people, so it does create a little bit more room for somebody who's a bit of a specialist to still have decent results in their bad conditions.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point, which probably not a lot of people kind of realize, that there could be bigger gaps in between these guys. And in a normal world championships, you might have another 5 French, you might have another couple of, Dutch riders or whatever, and those are not there anymore. There's only one person from each country, and that's, for anyone who doesn't know, that's probably to stop team racing, because obviously in sailing, if you were 2 guys from one country, one guy could take someone else out or something. I'm guessing that's the reason there's only one guy from each country. So there are spaces, and like you say, those specialists, when they have a bad result, it might not necessarily be as bad as it would be at a world championships. So as long as they can cling on in their, let's say, worst conditions and really go for it in their good conditions, it might it's interesting, that one.
Absolutely. I mean, I was told this morning that when Matteo had, in those 2 races he won, when he had sat down on his rib and got to his coach boat, the next 2 guys were still on their last jibe, 2/3 of the way downwind.
Okay.
So there's a lot of space. And I also was told that Thomas in the last race finished 3rd, I think, 3rd or 4th.
Third.
3rd. He actually completely fell off his gear and was swimming after it. So he was in the water for 30 seconds and didn't lose a place. So there's definitely space.
Okay, so that works both ways, I guess. It's if you're miles ahead, you want some people in between. You're like, where is everybody? But then, like I say, works both ways. Interesting. So from me, let's talk about the men first. Obviously, we've got the women, which we're going to come on to. There's actually a bit more coverage from the women. But the men, who has had a good day? I mean, obviously, Swiss rider Matteo looks like he's had 2 first places, but he won't be liking that last one. That's kind of... But with 2 firsts, you get away with it, because when you look at results, obviously everyone's going, Ben, it's obvious who's had a good day. There's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. But for me, in a long regatta, you don't want any shockers on that first day. There's only one discard. There's meant to be 12 races, I guess, in the medal race. What's your feeling, Tom? Like, I mean, obviously you've won a gold medal. What's your tactic in a long regatta like this? What's your risk strategy?
Yeah, I think as you say, it's pretty important not to have a really bad result on the first day, and these results are a little bit misleading because they're putting a discard in there already. So the better number to be looking at this point is the total points rather than the net. So I think, yeah, for sure, you'd be trying to avoid bad scores. Some of the guys are a little bit more risk averse, and some guys are a little bit more punchy. Like, Kieran's definitely just out there trying to win races all the time, which is cool, and that makes it way more exciting when there are people sailing like that. I would have thought really strong performances on that first day. Like Mattia, the Italian guy, did really well.
Yeah,
and he's a guy we know can sail really well across the conditions.
4.24. That's solid, isn't it? That's 10 points.
Yes, yeah, that's a really solid day. And then Kieran sounds like he had some challenges on that first day as well, and he seems to have come through that pretty well. And both of those guys, that they can win races in all the conditions. And so, looking ahead, they're in quite a strong position. It only takes one windy day to get rid of the likes of Mateo or the young Spanish guy.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, looking at those results, are we talking double figures? Is that a discard? There's probably no guarantees, but if you're going for a gold medal, you're not going to want to count a double figure.
Man, it's interesting. So if you look at the last couple of Olympics that Dorian won, he won them with super small numbers of points, like 20 points or something, or 25, which is pretty unusual. I think probably speaks more to Dorian's dominance than it does to a normal windsurfing regatta. I think I won mine with 55 points or something like that. So I was averaging something like 5th in the races. And that was kind of a calculated thing based on having seen, past big events where everyone's a little bit more risk averse, and people are sailing more to avoid mistakes than they are just to go out and win all the races. So it'll be interesting now. I mean, we do have guys in the fleet who are capable of sailing in that more punchy way. So I wouldn't expect it to be super high points. So that's probably a long way of saying, I think single figures, like if you're doing all your races in single figures and having some near the front of the top 10, that's probably a pretty good first couple of days.
Yeah, no, I'd go with that. Like you say, Dorian kind of blew everyone out with his sort of figures, just getting bullet after bullet, and it was kind of like, what is this normal? You look at the lasers and then the other classes, some of them are counting pretty big numbers, but they're also getting in some good races as well, So I think this year feels like it's going to be a close one, like in both fleets, men and women. It doesn't feel at this early stage, obviously very early in one set of conditions, it doesn't feel like anyone's just going to run away with it. And it looks like we're going to have a mixed bag of weather during the week. That typhoon has just showed up on Wind Guru for me. I was just actually looking before, and it's kind of interesting to see that sticking out. Well, it's already dropped a bit, but you can see where it's coming from.
Oh yeah, that'll be interesting. That'll mix things up for sure. I think another kind of subsequent question to who had a good day was, who do we think had a really bad day?
Yeah.
And so for me, that would be Byron from Greece. I think because he had a 17 and a 10 and a single digit, maybe a 9 or something.
8, 17 and a 10.
Yeah, I mean it's still a lot. It's still only 3 races, but
not the way you want to start.
Yeah, for someone who's knocking on the medals, that would be painful, I think.
What do you make of the Hong Kong guy? 3rd, 8th, and an 8th. That's, I mean, again, I'm a little bit out of the loop with the RSX stuff because obviously things have moved forward to the IQ foil. But I mean,
well, Michael actually finished 8th in Rio, so that's not surprising. What is surprising is we haven't seen Michael in almost 2 years. and he often races very well, mostly at the Olympics. So not surprising, but in a way, but also by that same token, quite surprising. Also, another person we haven't seen in 2 years is someone Tom used to coach, is a Chinese sailor. So we weren't really sure, if the Chinese were going to come out and just absolutely smash everyone because they've just been training at home, or if the isolation has had an effect on kind of their racing. I don't know, maybe Tom wants to say something about that.
Yeah, I mean, he would be number one on my list. Old Big Kun, we used to call him Obama. He would be number one on my list of who didn't have a good day. I think, I would have had higher expectations given the Chinese guys have a fleet of RSXs back in China, and they've been training consistently on RSXs for the last 2 years, while a lot of other people have been going foiling and having fun and doing the odd RSX regatta. So yeah, I think that was probably quite a disappointing day for him.
I mean, you obviously don't know how this feels, I guess, but you can probably sum it up as regattas. If you start like that, how are you feeling today? You've waited 4 years for this one, 5 years. You must be, I don't know, do you sleep the night before? Are you not sleeping? How does that work? I mean, I guess everyone's different, but I mean, it must be so much pressure that first day.
Yeah, it's different for everyone, I think. I used to quite enjoy that first part of a regatta, and I didn't really feel nervous then, but towards the end of a regatta, I might start to get a little bit nervous. But you definitely see there are some people who quite often have a bad first day, and everyone copes with that a little bit differently. This Olympics, I think, is probably is different too, because of all of the restrictions that everyone's under. So it won't be feeling like a normal windsurfing event for everyone, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so just to clarify, because there might be a few people thinking, okay, when are you going to show the action from the day's racing? The problem is, I've contacted everyone. There is literally no way of getting action footage. The only footage, video footage, even sailing.org or, people like this, they are having to show slideshows, because all the footage, all the media videos only goes to the Olympic Committee's chosen countries, I guess, so BBC or Eurosport or whatever. So I do have a few WhatsApps that a few people have sent me from the race today, which we will show. That's from the women's racing. There was a few incidents going on. I'm going to risk it, but I can say, if you do want to check out the footage on demand, I would just, and I'm not paid to say this, but Eurosport.com was the easiest I found. Sign up for a month. It's $6.99, and then just cancel your subscription, and you will get all the stuff that they're getting given for $6.99, which isn't bad. I'm guessing in every country it's probably different, but that's the easiest way I found. Antonio found
the easiest way I found. Yeah, thank you.
I didn't find anything. I got to be honest. I was like pulling my hair out. Look, and it's I couldn't find anything. It's the most frustrating thing. And don't start me off on a rant, because I think for the Olympics, every sort of small sport like this should be getting some sort of video, because we're the ones who have the guys that want to watch it and are really into it, and it's not going to make a difference to the BBC or the whatever. So I kind of think it's a bit of a shame, but that's just the way it goes. So yeah. We just got, actually, there we go. Basha just said, I paid up and joined Eurosport. It is 100% the easiest. And I don't know if it's the best, but it seems to be the content that's coming out. That is the easiest way to find it. So yeah, we got a couple of questions coming in. Sebastian said, who are the top 5 men? Well, pretty much just covered that, but it's kind of an interesting day there, I actually have to say. It's so top 5 is first Switzerland, which for some people will be like, what? But he's 59 kilos. We just heard he's got about an 8-pack going on. He looks fit as a fiddle. I would say a light wind specialist. If it gets windy, might struggle to hold on. We'll see. Spanish rider, who's that? Angel?
Yeah, also a little guy.
I mean, maybe you're better to talk through the results better than me, to be honest, because you race with them, you know the guys. But the Spanish guys had a pretty solid day. He'll be gutted about that 13th, I'm sure. You know, you imagine something in single digits on that last race, he'd be like, what a first day. Now he's got that, and it's like, oh, it just takes the edge off the first two, you know, I'd imagine. And then obviously we've got Kieran Badlow came into the Olympics, probably, I would say, top seeds, won the couple of worlds. He's obviously beat Dorian to even get there. And that's a pretty solid first day for most people. He might be thinking, oh, could have, should have, would have with a few results there. That middle one looks, and we heard on his voicemail message before, that one seemed like a bit of a race that maybe conditions went a bit funky. And then I would say probably the most consistent, and I would say happy with the day, is the Italian rider. I would, just looking at the results, Camboni, 4th, 2nd, 4th, pretty solid.
Yeah, pretty solid. I mean, everyone there in the top 7, if they were in the top 5, that would not be a surprise, you know. The only one who's not there is the Greek guy, like we talked about before. So, yeah, what you see there is kind of what should be there, maybe in a slightly different order, but.
Yeah, and then today, just so for people who don't know, didn't tune in yesterday, the forecast was, looking at this, it was very similar to the Tuesday forecast on here. Unfortunately, I refreshed it and I got rid of the forecast, but I think it was from the south. It was showing like 8 to 12 knots on Wind Guru. I'm going to use Wind Guru every day just so we've got like some sort of consistent sort of way to look at it. Tomorrow, which is Monday, wind's coming from the other direction. That, that straight away is already like, oh my God, if you're racing, what you're thinking when that happens, or they've already had those conditions, I guess.
Yeah, I think you'll see from when you roll the clips that you're about to show. And like from what Kieran said earlier, they had the northeast, which is a side offshore at the start of the day, and then it died, and then they had the sea breeze come in. So you'll see in the clips, it's like very choppy and lumpy. Which causes a few incidents, which I think we will also see in the clips, which you will roll. So maybe that's a good segue to move into the women's results to see how they went, and then you can risk your career on playing those.
Okay. If we get banned get taken to court, I'll laugh anyway.
You're too small fry to be taken anywhere, Ben. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I'll roll some pictures just while we're showing. I'll get the results out. That's probably the easiest way of doing this. Sorry, one-man show at the moment.
That's okay. Well, I'll take over your one-man show for a few seconds, and then Tom can think of something to say about these results as he peruses them. I think the only person we didn't talk about yesterday when we were doing our preview was Zocha from Poland, who's sitting in 2nd place, who I think must be 35 now. I went to the same youth worlds as her. So, yeah, she's mother of 2, so doing exceptionally well. But everyone else we talked about. Charlene, obviously defending Olympic champion. Marta, who's had 5.65 at the last 3 worlds. Katie from Israel, and Lillian, who was one of the favorites. They're all there. Disappointing day probably for Shu, the Chinese sailor there in 7th. But yeah, I mean, all looks pretty kind of as we expected, but possibly in a not quite the order we might have expected.
I was going to say, so same questions as the men. Who's had a good day? Who's had a bad day? A bad day, I mean, I'm not saying a bad day, but if she hadn't have got the bullet in the last race, surely Lillian would have been not too happy with that day. I don't know. You know the results better than me, but I'm thinking she needed that bullet on the last race.
I mean, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, it's, there are 3 races in the day, and you kind of have to look at it as the sum of all 3, and particularly with a couple of different conditions that it seems like they had. So I saw in some of the mark roundings early, Lillian was doing all right, I think, in that first race too, and then might have had a shocker towards the end. I think that's what I was watching.
Yeah.
So that's something that happens, but clearly she's well capable of being up there. I think the women's results are probably, there are less surprises in there than the men's, with the exception maybe of the Chinese athlete who looks like she's had a pretty bad day. But yeah, everyone else I think is exactly as Antonio said, who you'd expect.
Yeah, so she's pretty much used her discard 25. That's it, isn't it? First day, discard gone.
Yeah.
Tricky.
That's a shocker. I mean, that's about as bad as it gets, really, because you never know when you might need to be able to rely on a more reasonable discard for some reason. So getting that out of the way on the first day is really tough for the rest of the week. I mean, that's, you talked about nerves, like that's the shit that makes you nervous, because with 9 more races and no margin for error, that's tough.
Yeah, that's tricky. I mean, we do have some footage, so I'm going to risk it. Windsurfing.TV on the line here, but there was a couple of incidents today. I mean, one was just the hectic mark rounding. Mark number 1, the windward mark, all the women coming in at one point, and just check out this for carnage. And be warned, for anyone who's into windy windsurfing,
yeah, this is not exciting stuff. This is not exciting stuff.
This is what the foil is going to have to deal with when we go to the next Olympics. So bear that in mind when you're watching this clip.
This is race 3, mark number 1, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's light, isn't it? Already you can see. That's if I picked the right clip. But that's right. It's pure pumping. I think this is Lillian, is it?
Yeah, Lillian.
Yeah. So this was the race he smashed. So it must be the 3rd race. And
here we go.
This. Or just check is it the American?
Yeah.
She gets absolutely...
So she
there.
Can't cross Demeter from Mexico, tries to dip, crashes into everyone else.
And then doesn't make the mark, then has to do a 360. It's like a catalogue of just disaster. I mean... You watch, she's still going back, and there's people not making it. Oh man, I mean, 4 years, and you know, a mistake like that, it's got to hurt, hasn't it? And then just to
that's not 4 years for that's Farah. That's Farah.
Yeah, that is Farah. Yeah.
And just to kill the channel totally, I'm going to play you another incident, which is again this one. We're going to watch it. I don't know if Tom's seen it. I'd love to hear his comments on this. So this is in the 3rd race. Polish rider just set the scene. Polish rider Klipaka has doing pretty well. She's having a solid day. I think she's had like a 2nd and a 4th, or she's right up there into the last race, trying to cross with the French rider Charlene, I think. It's the Polish rider's right of way.
Yeah. And they're in about 5th or 6th at this point on the 2nd leg, I think. 2nd upwind.
Oh, hang on.
Oh, you've told the punchline before you told the joke.
No one saw. Here we go. So obviously starboard tack, for people who don't know, right hand at the front, has right of way.
Amazing.
Oh, that's just that. You know what I mean? So obviously now the French rider has to do a penalty. She does a 360. Carries on. Now the real punchline is she went on to post something like a top 5 result, and Klipaka, I think, was outside the top 10.
Yeah, so I think she finished 2nd in that race. She nearly beat Lillian on the last downwind. They were very close at the bottom mark. And then Zohar finished 14. Yeah. So shocker. And then they protested.
I'd just like to,
Here you go, Tom.
Well, I'd just like to apologise for all of the PWA and foiling windsurfers out there for firstly making you watch that, and secondly that this is the pinnacle of world windsurfing and that kind of stuff's happening. But I think really reflecting on that, it just makes you wish that the foil would come in as soon as possible, and we don't just see any of that anymore.
Yeah,
I mean that's light, isn't it? That's light.
On the tracking, they were showing 3.7 knots.
Yeah, wow. I have got another video that someone sent me on WhatsApp, but I don't want to show it. Let's save the channel for another day.
Yeah.
I don't think it can handle those speeds.
Yeah, it looked actually really hard though. From the lower angle, you can see like the water state and how little wind there is. But still not a good thing to happen, I think. Has anyone got anything to
I
say?
mean, that's another really
interestingly,
good illustration.
No,
go on,
you go
carry
down.
on.
So,
There's a bit of a delay.
well, yeah, I mean, just another illustration of what you were talking about, Ben, with the nerves, because you could sail 1,000 races that aren't at the Olympics and not do stuff like that. But the American sailor, she's super experienced. She's probably, I don't know, almost 40, I think. Been around since I was a youth. And then likewise, Charlene and Zoha, two of the best windsurfers in the world, crashing into each other at 3 knots of speed. Like, that stuff shouldn't happen. And the only reason it's happening is because people aren't quite seeing straight, because it's the first day of the games, I guess.
What do you think the theory is, though? So like my looking at that, I'm thinking Klipatska trying to just clip her just to get her to do a penalty and then carry on, and then obviously it looks like the nose of the board gets stuck on the strap, it spins around, and it just compounds everything. It's like, oh, it's this. What would you do in that situation? Would you just let them go, or do you? I mean, I don't know. It's a long time since I've raced.
Oh, 100%, mate. Like, it's that crash wasn't good for anyone. So, you would be letting someone go and having a word afterwards to say, like, okay, you owe me one. And you never know, with 9 more races of the Olympics left, when when you might need to call that in. So that will be a nice, handy thing to have in the bag. Obviously, for the sailor on starboard, that didn't help, because she, fell in the water and lost positions as well. So, it's basically never good to be getting in those kind of incidents. And, you don't make friends, you lose positions. It's not good racing for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting when you say that. So you think you can kind of go, okay, I'll give you that. You better be, or is that how it works? Or do you have that with certain riders and not with others? I guess it's maybe a personal thing. Or is this the Olympics? That's it.
I mean, the culture of the fleet changes, and different fleets have different cultures. So I know on the men's side, definitely there is a lot more of that going on, and the guys tend to be a bit more, a bit less strict on the crashes and the protests and stuff like that than the girls' side. But then there are other classes in yachting where it's even more rife. The 470s, they're all just protesting each other all day. There'll be 8 470 protests for each race. But in my experience, definitely it is always good to have a few people owing you favors in the fleet, and it's just nice, right? Because in every single race you'll have 15 opportunities to screw someone over, and you don't need to take all of them. And it's nice when everyone else isn't taking all their opportunities to screw you up as well.
Yeah. Interesting. Like actually Bash was saying about the protest, we do have what was the protest hearing? Antonio, you read it out to me before.
Oh yeah, I did. And also Basher is just Bash in 1956 has left a comment saying that the facts found were that both sailors were in the wrong, because the Polish sailor didn't actually, once she realized that there was going to be a collision, she didn't try and avoid it. So she didn't get redress, but Charlene from France also didn't get any further penalty. So
it's a difficult one, that, isn't it? It's like, well, how do you then prove you had to, it wouldn't have been a very big avoiding action, would it? Let's be honest. It's like, and it would have missed. So
yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into like protests and the philosophy behind them. It's so much of a, she said situation.
Well, funnily enough, I do have a good story, and because you both are from New Zealand, I could probably share it. One of my first, youth worlds in Bermuda for the IYRU practice race, port starboard with a certain JP Tobin. Nice. I'm on port. He was easily crossing behind me and just puts in about 100 pumps at 1,000,000 miles an hour to T-bone me in the first practice race. And I always remember it, thinking he was shouting and screaming. And I remember thinking, God, it's pretty hectic, this racing international. And we both ended up in the water. Obviously, we didn't do very well in the protest. And then we ended up the event tied for second place going into the last race. He finished second. I finished fourth. So that's my experience. It's not as good as you boys.
Yeah, well,
so
he got it. He got in your head, so it was worth it.
Yeah, it definitely was. He scared the life out of me. I was like, my God.
You're still scared, it seems.
Okay, so women's results, like I say, so France, that's a pretty solid day. First, 6th, second. As we saw before, Cleopatra, solid day, but also, as Tom mentioned, they've already got a discard after 3, where when you've only got 1 discard after 12, seems strange to already get it to kick in after 3. But anyway, kind of makes the results a little bit different. Italian girl, solid day for her as well. Like everyone's pretty there or thereabouts. I'm just going to look at the overall scores.
Yeah, 3, 5, 6 the net, but 9, 19, 12, 13 for those top 4 girls in total points. So probably, I don't know, Emma and Marta and Charlene have probably had the most solid days there.
Yeah, Emma's going to be happy with that. I think she was one of my tips for a medal. Come on, the Brits. Come on, the Brits. I got to ask, where's the New Zealanders?
Well, we weren't good enough.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I was wondering where they'd all gone to. Usually got quite a strong contingent coming from over there.
Yes, well, I think it's fair to say that the golden age of New Zealand windsurfing is long in the past.
But the foiling's not going to bring it back. I've heard there's a couple of people transitioning over.
Yeah, hopefully it's a hiatus to the golden age of windsurfing. And there are heaps of guys training out here on the foil, and your mate JP Ben is coaching them, and they seem to be doing a bloody good job. So I think, yeah, all Antonio's work and getting the foiling into the Olympics might pay off for the Kiwis.
Yeah, well, let's see. Okay, well, to be honest, what have we got? We've just got a little bit of what did I see before when I was looking through? We have the wind for the week. I think that's probably worth a little look just to kind of give ideas. Antonio, you've sailed in Japan in the race course. How is that looking? I mean, obviously that typhoon, but it's miles away. I don't think it's going to affect any of the sailing, is it? It's a shame. Shame we couldn't do it later in the week.
Yeah, I'm actually terrible with looking at weather forecasts because like I said yesterday, don't really check them because what happens happens. But from my memory of sailing there, I mean, the northeast, which they had in the morning yesterday, was shifty, side offshore, flatter water, kind of nice to sail in if you like the gusty, shifty stuff. And then it's horrible when it turns to the sea breeze and you get all that, like, it's not really, it's like chop, and then you get swell under the chop.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think, is there more of tomorrow is the sea breeze right there, the south direction? Yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
It's pretty hard to judge the forecasts in a place like this because it's in the summer season. The sea breeze is quite dominant, and it can kind of come in on top of the offshore breeze. So,
okay,
having a decent offshore forecast is not necessarily a sign that you're going to have offshore breeze during racing.
Okay.
But that northeast breeze the northeast breeze is a really tricky one, and particularly when it's hot there, it can be super unstable, and then you're quite likely to have stuff that you saw that Kieran described, where the breeze dies and shifts 180 degrees during the race or something like that. But Inishima is really known for good sea breezes, and quite a lot of people, all of the Japanese team, spend heaps of time training there because you can get quite reliable kind of 12 to 16 knot sea breezes when it's on. So the conditions that they race in could actually be determined by like the time of day that they race. So if they're racing earlier in the day, they're less likely to have a decent sea breeze. But then if they get that nice window, then no matter what the forecast is, they could actually have beautiful 15 knot conditions.
Okay, interesting. I'm just looking at that cloud cover, and rain doesn't spell sea breeze to me, but I think maybe that typhoon that's kind of on on the horizon will change that weather, whatever we're getting this week. I think we're going to see very changeable conditions. So, like I say, there's a bit of rain involved. There's cloud cover, and that's Portugal.
Nice.
I was thinking, that looks quite nice.
There's a question down there in the feed about whether Kieran went all out yesterday. Like, have we seen his best form, or was he holding it back? Essentially, I think, if I'm summarizing correctly, for sure he was doing as best he could. I mean, I think he managed those races pretty well. Like both races, he rounded 12th at the first top mark, so he did really well to work back from there in the tricky conditions. So, yeah, I think he's had a good day.
Yeah. Well, where we go, I think we're pretty much going to run to the end of that. We're not going to kill it anymore. Like I say, it's just the first day. You can't win a regatta on the first day, but you can lose it. That's like the famous saying, isn't it? But I don't think anyone's lost it yet, apart from a couple of people have maybe burnt their discard, which I would imagine in a long event like this with one discard to go, they're going to be pretty nervous, or that might just release them and they just come out all guns blazing after that. So almost like a wounded animal, but we'll have to wait and see how it pans out. Forecast is going to be very similar. We're going to see, like I say, we're seeing the pictures at the moment. We're seeing subplaning, we're seeing planing. As Tom said, depends what time of the day you're going to be on the water. It's going to be massive, absolutely massive, especially when you see some guys are favoring the lighter winds and some guys are favoring the planing winds, and the differences between 1st and 13th, 14th, that kind of range of differences, which is huge. So I hope whoever's paying the guy which course they're on and what time is doing a good job. We've got someone asking about Kieran's hair. Well, the last airbender is that was his update from today. Actually, this was quite funny. I remember looking on Instagram earlier, but this was quite a funny picture. I don't know if you see that if you're looking on the phone, but this is how to make friends. And this is what Tom was saying before. You've got to have a few in the bag. That looks a pretty happy 2 people around the Windward Mark. Obviously, that's one of his good races when he's...
Oh, we can't see it, Ben.
You can't see it?
Yeah. Okay,
sorry. Apologies. I'm on the wrong one. We'll get it on. There we go. How's that?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I can see it.
I mean, they look pretty happy.
Yeah. Well, they're friends actually. So that's Andre from Norway, just behind Kieran, and they've been training together. I mean, here in The Hague before the games. And actually, Kieran said to me that he was yelling out at Andre, telling him that if he pumped a bit harder, he might round the top mark first. And then they had a bit of an exchange on Instagram about it.
Classic. Well, if anyone who didn't tune in yesterday or didn't see the old this makes me laugh every time I see this, but this was apparently the vision, and this is the outcome. Look at that thing. That is what Kieran Badlow is racing with this week. If you haven't checked it, go onto his Instagram. That's a beauty.
When I saw that, like that's definitely the haircut of a confident man, because you don't want to be finishing 5th with that haircut. Like if you're gonna have a blue arrow in your head, you'd be bloody win the event.
That is true. It's like the guys who go surfing with a bright white wetsuit, and you're like, dude, you better be good, because if you're going to be kooking around in the white water, it ain't going to work. So you're right. It's a good sign. I think a good sign.
But their haircut was self done. So that's pretty good effort. That was not a professional job. That was Sailor and coach did that together. So it's quite impressive.
The mark of Aaron
like finding a
McIntosh.
professional who'll do that for you.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. All right, boys. Well, there we go. That's it. Broken down. Day number 1. This is the nerdy channel for the Olympics this week. We're going to try and, like I said, sort of break down. We're going to try and get some inside information. We've already had 1 gold medalist on in 2 days. That's pretty impressive. So hopefully Tom's going to be back during the week. 100% we want to get him back before the end of the week, before that medal race, and pick his brains, how that is, because I know Tom had a really close one. I think it was down to the last race, wasn't it? Down to a point or something, super close. So Interesting stuff. So thanks everyone for joining. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to do the same time every night. So here in Portugal, I think we start at 7:30. I think in mainland Europe, like France, Netherlands, it's 8:30. So around that time, we're going to do it every night, and we're going to do pretty similar. We can't get any video, but maybe someone's going to send me a WhatsApp, and we'll try and sneak it on if we don't get banned before then. So massive thanks to Tom Ashley, gold medalist from Beijing. Cheers for joining us, Tom. And
Cheers,
thank
boys.
you to Antonio. I can never even say your name all the time.
Fine.
Cozzolino.
Yeah, I mean, Antonio is fine, you know, it can be like single name.
Cozzolino.
Yeah, Cozzolino.
I want to say it with an Italian accent, but my Italian's not so good. Okay. All right, boys. See you for the next one. Let's, well, wish everyone best of luck tomorrow.
Yeah. Cheers.